Welcome back to Kings of Columbus, Doug Maurice and Bill Landis. Landis, we're back. It's been a while. We're here to talk Buckeyes. You've been talking. I've been watching my eye heal. So thanks for everybody's patience. Sorry, it's been a while. We just want to we want to vibe a little bit. And then we'll do what you're watching, what you eating, what you're thinking here for the holiday season at the end of the show. Not as long as usual, but I will say, as I have not been as intimately involved, again, I had eye surgery last week. I haven't been like at the Ohio State news conferences and stuff. I have thought that this December, for lack of a better word, sucked. Like this is no way to enjoy college football. Thank goodness a 12-team playoff is coming. I think this may be the weirdest December that I've been associated with since I started covering Ohio State football in 2005. We've had this early signing period since 2018. And like the fact that Ohio State's not getting ready for a playoff game, the fact that they have had a bunch of guys in the portal, the fact that there was a lot of consternation about whether they're going to lose a bunch of flips in the class, the starting quarterback. Landis, what is this?
Well, I agree with you that it's weird, but I don't. You think the advent of the 12-team playoff will make it less weird?
No, but it'll take our focus because like last year. So since it got weird, since 2018, we've had the December early signing period. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. This is the sixth year of that. But the NIL part of it, like we had a COVID year, that was weird. But like a year ago, yes, all this stuff was happening. But Ohio State was getting ready to play Georgia. And like there was football on people's minds. And nobody is thinking about the Ohio State-Missouri Cotton Bowl as much as they were thinking about an Ohio State-Georgia semifinal. Yep. So then all that's on your mind is there's 14 guys in the transfer portal. Is Jeremiah Smith going to flip? I can't believe Justin Scott flipped. Like, oh my gosh, Kyle McCord left. Who's the starting quarterback going to be? And in the 12-team playoff that Ohio State is going to be part of, far more often than not, at least December for Ohio State fans, will be football time instead of crazy rebuilding the roster. Who knows what's going to happen time? Is this enjoyable? I have a survey. Are Ohio State fans enjoying their December?
No, I would imagine. Well, they weren't probably up until like 1:00 on Wednesday when Jeremiah. Well, I shouldn't say that. The initial short-lived jubilation when Jeremiah Smith announced his commitment, and then full-on panic for like the next 9 hours until he actually sent in his letter of intent. So I think Wednesday ended up being an enjoyable day for Ohio State fans. Largely, I think the month has not been. But I don't know. Like as we're talking about it, I'm not sure that the distraction of a playoff game is going to help things.
No. But we can't. This is the problem with college football right now. You just referred to as the ultimate accomplishment, the reason that everything else exists. Why is there a portal? Why is there NIL? Why is there recruiting? Why are there scholarship limits? Why does any of this matter? Because you're trying to win a championship. You just referred to next December's pursuit of a championship as a distraction. It's not the distraction. It's the whole shebang.
Yes, I don't mean distraction for Ohio State. I mean a diversion, a way to, I don't know, have our mind less occupied by the craziness of college football roster building. But I did not mean to minimize it.
No, but like the craziness. Like, can we eliminate the craziness? I'm very. It's been. Let me do the survey. Here's a survey.
Okay,
this will help.
Okay.
These are the choices, because I know what I am. This is the question that I ask people. With such a dramatic signing day, so many transfers, including the starting quarterback, and the NFL draft decisions looming, what has your Ohio State fandom been like in December? Okay, these were my choices. One was chilled out. I figure it'll be fine, but I'm just taking a break from thinking about the Buckeyes all the time, right? So, like, you're not mad, you're not upset, you're not excited. You're just like, I'm just going to take a step back. Okay. Chilled out. What is given up? It's a weird, crazy, uncertain time. And it's turned me off for now because this has not been fun. So like chilled out is like, it's all good. And I'm stepping back. Given up is like, it's not all good. And I'm stepping back. Right. But that's both are kind of removed from your fandom a bit. Then I said the usual. It's just ball, Christmas is coming, whatever. I'm the same fan I've always been. Like, this is just what December's like. One is freaked out. There's so much uncertainty. I'm following everything, but I'm worried about it, right? I'm like following it, but with panic. And then there's fired up. I'm locked in on everything that Ohio State's doing, but I'm excited about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one's kind of like business as usual. Then there's two, I'm locked in, good and bad. And two, I'm like giving up, good and bad, right? Those are the 5 choices. What would you say if you were thinking like a fan, Landis? What would you be?
Freaked out.
Yeah, I think I'm freaked out too. I get paid for this and I'm freaked out. Like, what is this? And I just was having this conversation and somebody was like, well, this is what it's like for everybody. And like, I know, I would say, I know, but Ohio State's been immune to it because we only started having the early signing period in December 2018, right? That was the first time it happened. And that was when Urban Meyer was quitting and they were passing it off to Ryan Day. So like that was a freak out time, right?
No, that was a year before. It was a year before that. It was 17. It was December 17 for the 18 class. Yes.
Okay. So that was the first year of it. Okay. So that was getting ready for the Cotton Bowl, right? But I just feel like this has been more consternation with recruiting and transfers and the NIL discussion. But since we really got into the NIL stuff, 19, they're in the playoff, 20, they're in the playoff, 21, they're not in the playoff, but like the recruiting went really well that year, right? That was kind of more normal. And then last year they're in the playoff. So like that to me is like, again, that this is where the world is. This is what it's been like for a lot of fan bases. But I feel like there's been a little bubble over Ohio State. There's been a protective playoff bubble. And when you took that bubble away, and Ohio State has not had as many transfers out, right? They just haven't. This was kind of like they kept a bunch of guys, and this was kind of the dam, breaking on transfers. And again, even though they're not like devastating to the roster transfers, it's still weird. And the starting quarterback left, which is like never happened before. Yeah. It's awful. This is no way to be a fan. There's too much happening. There's too much uncertainty. And I think for the 12 teams in the playoff a year from now, the bubble goes back over you. It's an igloo even. You're back in your little playoff igloo. And yes, that stuff's happening, but fans don't have to be obsessed with it. And that's what I don't like for fans. That the season ends, bowls aren't what they used to be, and there's just uncertainty. So you and I would both vote freaked out. Here were the final tallies. 29% fired up, like I'm locked in, but in a good way.
Good.
28% the usual, man. It's just being a fan. Just being a fan in December. I'm all good. 20% freaked out. 17% chilled out, like I'm not as into it, but this is how I always am in December. And then 6% given up. Like it's so crazy, I don't even want to think about it. So that's only a quarter of the people, Landis, who are either freaked out or given up, which makes me happy.
Good. Yeah, it makes me happy.
I thought it might be like half, but I just don't think it's been fun.
No, I don't think it's been fun either. But I'm like actually like my heart is warmed by that.
Yes.
I have been like I've found myself thinking quite a bit like, man, this like it has to suck to be an Ohio State fan right now, just because there is a lot of uncertainty. And I don't mean for it to come off the wrong way, but like there's your season didn't end the way you wanted it to, and like there's nuance to all of it, right? Like I've tried to talk people down on like the 14 transfer thing because I just kind of think that's the cost of doing business in college football. And outside of Kyle McCord, I don't know that any of them were shocking and or all that impactful. It's just going to happen, I think, most off seasons. So I hope people can get used to that. But then, yeah, like Wednesday was nuts, and like, what's the class going to look like? And I think you are right. Maybe if a bubble did exist, the ability to focus, if not solely, mostly on a football game, I think will insulate a lot of us from feeling perhaps overwhelmed by the craziness that is going to be a December in college football if you're not in the playoffs. So that'll be a good thing. Do we know like now, like right now, if you're a playoff team, like your portal window and stuff like that gets extended? Is that going to be true if you're like a first round playoff team next year?
Yeah, I have no idea. And I think I don't even know if they have an idea. Like they've got to sort this out. Like
they are flying by the seat of their pants. Yeah.
They totally are. So like, Thank God for the 12-team playoff. I've been thinking that a lot lately. I did ask people that as well. A year from now, we'll be ready for the playoff first-round games. Ohio State has a very good chance to be in that 12-team playoff. How are you feeling about that reality? Because the 12-team playoff, there will be one game on Friday, December 20th, and 3 games on Saturday, December 21st. So it's going to be that weekend before Christmas.
This weekend.
It's this weekend, right? The weekend before Christmas. It'll be 4 home sites. So I don't know. I mean, I guess could even maybe if Ohio State doesn't win the Big Ten, you could have a game in Ohio Stadium potentially on this weekend.
So that would be what? That would be Ohio State getting ready to play Penn State this weekend if they were doing it this year? Yeah.
Yes. So that reality, I've wanted a 12-team playoff, and I'm super excited for next year. That was 57% of the people. This season, with no playoff for the Buckeyes, has made me more excited for a 12-team playoff. 33% of the vote, Landis, and only 10% of the people saying they don't want the expansion. They'd rather keep it at 4. But like, I think again, this has been like a shock to the system. That of like, in theory, it's like, you diminish the regular season by having a 12. It's like, do you want to be in? Do you want to have a fun football December, or do you want to have a chaotic off-field December? Right? You want a fun football December? There's a lot more spots in a 12-team playoff. That's. I'm glad people have come around on that. If we weren't on the precipice, I'd be done. I'd be like, I had eye surgery. I'm out. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. Like, what is this? Yeah. Somebody asked me to the radio show. They were like, are you following the Florida State Board of Trustees meeting that's happening on this Friday morning as we record? I was like, no, because I don't like Board of Trustees meetings. I like football.
Yeah, that is.
I don't want to talk about trustees.
The Board of just to explain the absurdity of that, because I think I have this right. The Florida State Board of Trustees meeting is to discuss the viability of suing its own conference so that it can get access to the grant of rights that apparently only exists in Charlotte, North Carolina, and nowhere else, to then see if it makes sense to try to then leave the conference down the road. It's like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. No. Football, please. Yeah. It
might cost $500 million to get out. I don't care. Yeah. I want to talk about Washington, Texas. I want to talk about Ohio State, Penn State 7-10. So like that, there's when the chaos is in service of better football, which I do believe it sometimes is. Mm-hmm. I am very excited about UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon joining the Big Ten. I think that's in service of better football. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to figure out, but there's going to be better football. Then the chaos is palatable. When it's just chaos for chaos's sake, and it doesn't seem to make it, and you're so far removed from football, and really, it's not fair. You can't complain about guys opting out in the current system. Like, it's just you can't, right? Bowl season blows. Like this, what is this? We can't. You don't know anybody who's playing. You can't figure, that doesn't tell you anything. Maybe when you actually flip the TV on, you hope you see a good competitive game. But what opt-outs have done to bowl season compared to what bowl season was 8 or 10 years ago, I just feel like it's a lot less enjoyable. So here we are at Board of Trustees. I hate Board of Trustees. I shouldn't be like this. I haven't been on a podcast and on a show in 9 days. And I come back, I'm wearing an elf outfit, and I'm just whining. Did you miss this? Have you missed this? Man, I can't wait to share a microphone with Doug and just have him complain about everything.
No, I did miss it. Do we? And I'm glad that when we finally got back together, you're dressed like an elf. It's great.
Yeah.
For those of you who aren't watching YouTube, Doug is dressed like an elf.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been discussion about? I'm sure there has, and maybe I just ignored it because I don't care to pay attention to such things. Like the CEO of the Cotton Bowl making $900,000. Like maybe use that money to pay Marvin Harrison Jr. to play in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, no, it's still don't the blazer wearing bowl reps still show up in Ohio State's press box like in October to be like, hey, we got to scout out Ohio State. What are you talking about? It's still a boondoggle. There is still so much bowl boondoggling going on. It blows your mind. So, but it's just like with the very, very best guys, there's no amount of money that you can pay. Again, I was just telling the idea that the number one reason of why bowl, of the living example of this is why guys opt out, happened in the 2015 Fiesta Bowl with Taylor Decker and Jalen Smith. And that idea of one block by Taylor Decker changing the course of Jalen Smith's NFL career falls out of the first round, never has the career that he would have if he hadn't had that devastating knee injury. It's like, that's why. And I don't know, for some guys, there's no amount of money you can do. All you can do is give them the chance. More guys give it. I hope there's no, I think people have theorized there'll still be opt-outs in the playoff. I don't think there will be, because then just opt out of the whole season. Like I've said, I feel like, well, why would you play? It's like, because your team has a chance to win a championship. Well, then, if you don't think your team has a chance to win a championship, then just opt out, like, after you lose your second game in September. And you know what I mean? Like, I think that there's a lot of guys who still care about that. So I just think it's going to be so much better. I have just felt it more than I've ever felt it. And I know that we spend a lot of times, I think, trying to help fans get through it and understand it and appreciate the good of college football while dealing with the hurdles and the hiccups and understanding that, it's progress in its own bumpy, chaotic way, but there's a reason for it. And I personally have just had a harder time with that this offseason, because I think just like Ohio State has just gone through it more. And I don't like, are you juiced up for the Cotton Bowl? I know it felt like when the players came out and talked about how many guys are going to play and how much it matters to them, that was a real lift, I think, for the fan base.
It was a lift for me as well. Like, I got super excited about like watching Jordan Hancock go up against Luther Burden, and I got super excited about being able to watch like whatever a full game of Devin Brown might look like, right? And maybe if it's the last time Denzel Burke plays in an Ohio State uniform, like, to watch him go out there and play against a good offense again, right? So yeah, that gave me a lot of juice. Like when the matchup first came out, I was like, oh, this is whatever. Maybe it would have felt differently if it was like Ohio State, Oregon or something like that. But Ohio State, Missouri, and the Cotton Bowl didn't do much for me. But no, as we get closer to it, which I think is natural, I think you start to feel a little more energized about it. And I actually feel, I think maybe I'm prisoner of the moment. I feel more energized about this non-playoff bowl game than I think I have the previous non-playoff bowl games. Like the Rose Bowl against Utah, the Cotton Bowl against USC, the Rose Bowl against Washington. The Rose Bowl against Washington was different because it was like Urban's last game, and Ohio State hadn't been there in a while. But certainly more than the Rose Bowl against Utah, more than the Cotton Bowl against USC.
And it's funny. And then we covered that Cotton Bowl together. That wound up being like a pretty nice Ohio State win, against Sam Darnold, and that like the football itself wound up being pretty good. And then, my God, the Utah Ohio State Rose Bowl was as good of a bowl game as you're ever going to see. Like,
right.
That was like the football for 3.5 hours. The buildup maybe wasn't there. And then it was like, oh my gosh. So I do think I have to remember that for all the stuff that I just complained about, I'm complaining the elf. Whiny. No, Whiny the elf is better. Oh, guys. Oh, I didn't get what I wanted for Christmas. I got a board of trustees meeting. I wanted a playoff game. Ohio State usually delivers in bowl season.
Yeah, they do.
Like,
I think they will. We're waiting on a couple key opt-ins, I guess. Like I this is not reporting. I just don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to play. I don't think anyone should expect him to play. But like JT, Mike Hall, Travion Henderson, we're waiting on those three guys, I think, in particular. But the rest of like their guys are playing. So it's like you're gonna more or less see a complete Ohio State team go up against what is a complete Missouri team. It should be a great football game.
Okay, let's talk about recruiting a little bit. Obviously, you guys have been discussing it a ton on the podcast YouTube feed, on the podcast feed. I did survey the tech subscribers. How do you feel about Ohio State's 2024 recruiting class? 10 is great, 1 is bad. Scale of 1 to 10, Landis, what do you think it was?
7.6.
You're so good. You're so good at it. 7.74. So that's pretty good. I then asked, what's closest to your feelings about Ohio State's recruiting? Ohio State is recruiting at the level it should be. Ohio State is recruiting above the level it should be, or below the level it should be. Those are the three choices. What do you think won?
At
68%. Do you think above or below one of those two?
Below
29%, above 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Would you vote at the level it should be?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I think I would say at.
Are they closer to below or closer to above?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably closer to below. I think I would agree with the sentiment that is expressed there in the voting. Yeah.
It's hard because they had the number 2 class by star rating. But the idea is like, they're probably closer to worse than they should be than better than they should be. There's a part of me sometimes that says, you realize we're in Ohio, right? There's snow on the ground here.
Hmm.
And you guys kind of know how they do it. And then guys know like how they do it down there in the South. So we did a whole Kings of the North. You know how they do it down there?
Yeah.
You know how they do it down there? What do you mean below? There's snow on the ground, and you know how they do it down there, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? This is straight talk the elf. Come on, guys, right? I'm going to put on my elf hat, and we're going to talk straight. They had Ohio State has the second highest player rating in the 2024 recruiting class.
Yeah.
Competing with Alabama and Georgia and Miami and LSU and Texas. And we're closer to they're worse than they should be, than better than they should be. Like there's like sometimes when I go like 20,000, when I go up in the spacecraft, right, and look down and think, okay, like what?
Does that make you Alf the elf when you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you watch Alf? Was Alf your generation?
When I was a kid, yeah.
Wisecracking. We could probably get Alf on the show.
Yeah.
We could probably get Alf on the show.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I think of it that way, I'm like, what are you talking about? How can we possibly, like, honestly, they should, should they maybe honestly be like the 7th best recruiting team in the country? And they're closer. Like, if they actually did finish 7th, people would go crazy.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not trying to like make excuses, but like when you're up close to it, I think it's very easy to be like, man, how did they let Justin Scott flip? Like, man, how did they get Jeremiah McClellan flip it? Oh, why didn't they, and think of the things that, why did they get Caleb Downs last year? Should they work NIL a little bit better? Are they top heavy on certain positions and not good enough in other positions? But then sometimes when I step way back, I'm like, what are we talking about? Why should these guys be anywhere close to Bama and Georgia?
It's difficult for me to, I guess, to articulate sometimes how I feel about that, because sometimes I feel like the way you feel, and sometimes I feel like the 29% of people who think they're below the standard. And like, it's like, yes, they have five-star prospects in the composite, but it's like 2 of them are receivers and 1 of them was a quarterback. Like, we know they can do that. Can they do it at other positions? And people, I think, are left like wanting something more from offensive line recruiting because Justin Fry didn't get Jordan Seaton or Brandon Baker or Gerby Lambert, which like part of me agrees with. But then I'm also like, show me the track record of Ohio State routinely winning those kind of recruiting battles ever in the history of the program, because it doesn't exist. So it's like, does that then mean that they're doing an okay job, or should the standard change? Like, I don't know. I think it's really difficult conversation. I think this is a really good recruiting class. And like, they saved their butts with Edric Houston and Jeremiah Smith on Wednesday, which was awesome. Had they not done that, I think we're having a different conversation. Aside from like defensive line stuff, I don't know that they like missed egregiously at a whole lot of other places. The thing that makes it a little more frustrating for me with this particular cycle is like a Justin Scott, right? It's like, yeah, I would hope we all understand the geography of football, and like, there just aren't a lot of Justin Scotts north of the Mason-Dixon line, and there is rarely a Brandon Baker, in Ohio State's market. Like, when Paris Johnson's there, you get them. But those are the battles you have to win. Like, when that guy randomly exists in the Midwest closer to you, like, you have to get him. So to lose a 5-star defensive tackle from Chicago to Miami sucks. And like, even Jordan Seaton, who's like from Maryland, is not quite the same thing, but similar. It's like Chase Young was from Maryland, right? You got to go get Chase Young when Chase Young's in Maryland, and they didn't get Jordan Seaton. So like, that stuff is a little bit of a bummer, but I think generally they probably are at where they should be. And perhaps it is a little unrealistic at times to feel like they're below or closer to below than they are above.
I do think, like, and I looked at like the last 10 years, really in the last decade, there have been like 3 real peak classes, right? 2017, Chase Young, J.K. Dobbins, all those guys. 2018 that followed it up, almost the same ratings. And then they just wound up with a bunch of guys who were blocked by the 17 class and never really developed. And that class certainly fell short of expectations. And then the 2021 class, which all the third-year guys that we've all been talking about all year, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Ibuka and Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock and JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, this great class, Travion Henderson, of third-year guys that just went through. But otherwise, like this class fits right in with basically every other year, right? It's like 7 guys in the top 100. It's like, second, third, fourth in the overall star rating. Like all of that is very normal. It does feel like, so now that was a 21 peak class, 22, 23, 24, not quite there. Maybe it's time for like another peak class, right? In 2025 or 2026. I think they probably need to hit a peak again, especially in a couple different certain spots. But again, there's been a lot of discussion of the NIL era. It's spreading out the talent. And a lot of people made note of the fact that the top 10 players in the country went to 10 different schools. And I do think that the discussion is different when Ohio State loses a kid, whether it's a flip or whether it's just somebody that you feel like they should have gotten. When they lose them to Bama or Georgia or Michigan, right? Which doesn't really happen that often. As opposed, are they losing those guys to Miami? As good as Oregon is, I still think maybe Oregon would fit that. If you that, okay. Because if you lose them to Georgia or Bama, it's like, okay, well, they didn't come to you, and now they also might hurt you on the path to a national championship game. But if you lose them to Miami, you're just not getting them. Do you really think Justin Scott is like gonna keep Ohio State from winning a quarterfinal game 3 years from now?
No.
With 5 tackles for loss because Miami's going to be in the playoff. And like that part of NIL where these schools that just aren't quite as successful, aren't on the same tier as Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia, can win because of money, which is it's fine. But that doesn't translate into it's Texas A&M model. Doesn't translate into them being great programs. When you lose players to them, we have to make sure, I think, and differentiate between that and losing Caleb Downs to Alabama last year.
Yes, I think that's right. But I also think it's a little more difficult now than like swallowing that pill. I think is a little more difficult now than maybe initially anticipated, because I think there was some thought that like, okay, maybe Ohio State will lose a player occasionally to a program like a Miami, but that kid will get unhappy. He'll enter the transfer portal and Ohio State can win him back. But there hasn't been like many examples of that happening. Like the handful of guys that Ohio State was on in their initial recruitment who did enter the portal, like not many of them have come to Ohio State, right? It's happened, but like Chip Trainum. But like who was the
Tywan Malone,
but like the Chase Bezantis kid from A&M was in there. Although I guess there was something weird with Chase Bezantis where like he wanted to transfer, but he couldn't transfer because the NIL deal that he signed like would have given all of the money that he would have gotten elsewhere to the people at Texas A&M. Like he kind of got screwed over by guess not reading the fine print there, which I suppose is a cautionary tale. So like I think if more like Tywan Malones and Chip Trainums end up happening, then I think maybe the initial angst will be lessened a little bit, but I don't know if that's happened quite at the rate people were hoping it would, to make you feel better about it at the moment.
That felt like a big discussion point, right? Like you plant the seeds and then you wait a year and it's like, oh, those schools who have money but don't win, they'll pay the guy for a year. And then like the top tier winning programs can get the guys in years 2. It's like, where are they?
Right.
No, like we just like have to stop asking about that because like there's no proof of it. It's a nice idea, but like it's not happening. No,
it's not. And well, also it's like, Caleb Downs probably isn't going to leave Alabama. Keely's probably not going to leave Alabama. So,
and everybody is transferring to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
So like,
that too.
So, all right. Am I whiny the elf or am I inquisitive the elf? Inquiring the elf. Like
inquiring the elf. Yeah.
Okay. Right. I mean, like I'm not. I don't just want to complain about how things are. I'm just trying to figure out, like, from a fan standpoint of like how you're supposed to take all this in. And I've just found it to be odd.
Yeah, I do think like I'm glad that the some of the early survey results early in the episode, like they're painting a different picture for me of how I thought the fan base was feeling.
Yeah.
Which is like I thought it was like 100% angst everywhere, and I guess it's not that. I even saw some of that on Wednesday, like when Jeremiah Smith and his family were like figuring out their NIL stuff with Ohio State, and like there was no drama there. They were just like dotting T's and crossing I's, and it took a little longer than people wanted to take. And like, but I saw enough of people freaking out on Twitter about it. I was like, oh my god, this fan base. Like they can't suffer another loss like this. But then there was some stuff with their tech subscribers too. There was just like, we're good, okay. Like we know they're going to get them. So I'm glad that not everybody is on tilt, and frankly, it feels like far fewer people are on tilt than I initially realized.
All right, last question I wanted to ask you, because I did do it as a survey question. What do you think Ohio State's plan with defensive line coach Larry Johnson should be? And I don't even know like what I mean. Like the overwhelming answer is like, I don't actually know how you would execute this. Mm-hmm. Bring in a clear successor and make obvious plans for Johnson's retirement soon. 81% of the people said do that. 13% said tough business, but make a move right now and like get a new defensive line coach before the retirement speculation around Johnson really like weighs the program down. And then only 7% said keep him as long as possible. He's a key to Ohio State's defensive line success. So like, I guess the ideal world, now I'm ideally the elf. Hey guys, we'll make a defensive line succession plan. I don't even like, what would that be? I actually don't know what it would be, but it felt like I certainly was thinking, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it. I certainly was thinking to myself that if the Edric Houston stuff went sideways, that maybe it would just be like, okay, like this defensive line recruiting class just basically exploded. And you have to imagine that some of the uncertainty about Larry Johnson's future is part of that. And this is the line in the sand. And like, it's a very tough business, but how can you do this anymore?
Yeah.
And then Edric Houston stayed. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe not. I just like, how should fans be thinking about this?
I do think it's complicated, right? Because I think Larry Johnson is a unique individual. Like we always, your theory of assistants are replaceable so long as you replace them. I also believe in that, but I think we also have to acknowledge the ones who were a little bit unique, like a Larry Johnson. I thought the same thing. Like if Edric Houston ended up going to Alabama, then I think it's just time to make a change. Now the fear with that, I'm sure for Ryan Day, is you have Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Mike Hall, Tyleik Williams, Ty Hamilton, 5 defensive line starters, all like weighing, should I stay, should I go? If you get rid of Larry Johnson, I think we know what the answer to a should I stay or go is. Like they're all going to go. And then it's like, you have no defensive lineman. So I don't know what you're supposed to do there. And maybe the answer is just like, you accept it, you bite the bullet, you bring in a new defensive line coach, you get cobble together what you can via trying to recruit your own players and getting guys out of the transfer portal. And then you just sort of start over on the defensive line, which I think at some point you're going to have to do anyway, but I understand the trepidation that comes along with doing that. I think we're probably more in a position where they're going to try to finesse a transition by bringing in a second defensive line coach, which is not unheard of. Like Oklahoma State, I believe, Jim Knowles was there, had 2 defensive line coaches. I guess it's like an interior end kind of breakdown, which can work. And they need another defensive assistant anyway because the staff is still imbalanced. So I think that's probably the easiest route to figuring out what a future beyond Larry Johnson looks like. But like Ryan Day was pretty emphatic, like Larry Johnson's going to be here next year, and we have every reason to believe that he will be. So is there a way, whether that's using Parker Fleming's spot on the staff or figuring out something to get an extra spot from the offensive staff to bring in a second defensive line coach and make like a clear line of succession? I think that's the path that Ohio State is probably entertaining the most at this moment.
It's really, it's similar to what so many programs have gone through with a longtime head coach who is just getting up there in age and has been there a long time. And whether it's Bobby Bowden at Florida State or obviously Joe Paterno at Penn State was just much more complicated, but there was, the age factor of that, and that, that Ohio State has avoided that because stuff keeps happening with their head coaches. So they, the idea of like, what if you were on, year 25 of Jim Tressel? It's like, hey, what are we doing here? Right. That they have not had to face that. This is kind of the first time that I can remember that they've really had to face something like this with an excellent established winning crucial coach, and the age discussion and just the reality of that, especially as it relates to recruiting. And so it's never easy, but this is big boy school, right? I mean, I like, of course, it's not.
He's also not at the top of his game, right? Like, like Larry Johnson is a legend. Like,
right?
There should be like a book written about his career when he's done. But I think you could also fairly say that the last couple of years of defensive line production and recruiting have left something to be desired. So I think that should make it easier. I don't know if it does for Ryan Day or not, but I think it should.
And I can't, I don't mean this because we've established, everybody knows this, that it doesn't work this way anymore. It almost feels like to me, if signing day, if they had lost Jeremiah Smith and Edric Houston, it almost would have felt like to me that Ohio State really could have just used a reset year in 2024. And it's just like, play Air Noland, make every coaching move you need to make.
Mm-hmm.
You might go 8-4, but there's going to be a payoff. Now, the reality is, at a place like Ohio State, those years don't exist anymore. You might win the national championship every single year. You never know when it could happen because you always have the talent to do it. But if it had almost, because it feels like there are situations here where they kind of like are hanging on to things because of that reality, because it always might be your year. So you don't want to rock the boat too much. But where you're at a place where it's like, hey, like it's not our year every year, then you can sink the boat and be like, we bought it. Come on. Did you see how many holes there were in that boat? We had to buy a new boat. And it's going to take us a year to figure out how to use it. Like, I don't want to speak that into existence, but if signing day had gone worse, I almost maybe would have wondered about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I also think they're in a very strange spot with the roster because they're the large class of outgoing NFL players that we anticipated them having at the beginning of the season, I think is not going to look that way, right? So like,
yeah,
there's a lot of Ryan Day's talking on Wednesday, like we're 83, 84-ish scholarships because I think there is a belief that a lot of those guys are going to come back. So that I think impacts the perspective on, is this a reset year or not, more so than the recruiting does. So like there's a world where even if they would have lost Jeremiah Smith and Edric Houston, you still get a bunch of 2021 recruits back for a fourth year, and you still feel like you're rocking and rolling and playing for a championship.
Yeah, it's hard. Again, everyone's making the comparison. I just obviously to 2008 when the guys lose the national title game in 6 and 7, they come back. All those guys stay, come back for 08, and then guess what? It winds up being a transition year anyway. Like It didn't work.
Right.
It's a great loyal Buckeyes. James Laurinaitis, Brian Robisky, Alex Boone, Marcus Freeman, Malcolm Jenkins. Tip of the cap, loyal Buckeyes. Didn't work. They didn't win the national championship, and they went to Terrell Pryor as a starting quarterback in week 4. So like, I wonder. Okay, I'm speaking too many things. I don't want to be speaking things into existence, Elf. I'm just very all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's been an all over the place December.
It has been.
Okay. Is that helpful to say that out loud to people?
I don't know.
Hey, what's the podcast about? Just crazy. Yeah. Hey, man, it's crazy. Oh, yeah. What'd Doug say about it? He just said it was crazy for half an hour over and over and over again. Thanks.
He said it was crazy and then suggested that Ohio State might need a reset year.
Glad he's back. Wow. Really missed that guy. All right. We'll do a little bit of what you watching, what you eating, what you thinking to wrap up this version of Kings of Columbus next after this. All right, back on Kings of Columbus. So grateful you guys are here. Great to be back with you this holiday season. Bill Landis, what you been watching, man?
So I watched a movie on Netflix, Leave the World Behind. Have you watched it?
I've seen it in my feed. Have not watched it yet. Julia Roberts is in it.
Great cast. Julia Roberts is in it. Ethan Hawke is in it.
Mahershala Ali
is in it. Yeah. Like the kid actors I thought in it were pretty good. Julia Roberts plays a wholly unlikable character. It was like it was like a nice turn for her, I thought.
Yeah.
But the movie sucked. I just did not think it was very good.
For real?
Yeah, I thought it was really bad. Just like Hollow. Like I thought it was going to be like kind of like something I had never seen before, and then it just like kind of turned into something I feel like I've seen a million times.
Oh no.
Kevin Bacon's in it too for like 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
I think there were some, and I didn't read the book. My wife read the book, and I guess there's like a hard stop in the movie where the book ends, but then like the movie keeps going on for like another 45 minutes or so. Supposedly. I don't, maybe I'm wrong on that. People who read the book might correct me, but yeah, it was just like I thought there were some interesting directions it could have gone, and like it never went there, and then it just sort of like abruptly ended. So like I thought it was well acted, but the story was, I think, like rather bad and just like not structured very well. So it was kind of a bummer because I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah. People seem so excited. Yeah, happy holidays.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
I was going to ask you, well, I was for the watching portion, I was going to ask you what your favorite Christmas movie is, but I guess I can figure that out by the way you're talking. Yeah.
It's hard. I sometimes think I'm Will Ferrell.
Yeah. You kind of look like him a little bit. Yeah. There's a resemblance there.
My hairline has receded to past the point of like where I could like do like the curly haired thing out the side, but body type, like dad bod, right? Like that. My body looks like Will Ferrell's body. My body also actually looks like Tim Beck's body, by the way, which did you watch that? Did you watch a little Tim Beck on the beach? Oh,
yeah. You know what I didn't need to see on National Signing Day? Tim Beck's nipples. No thanks.
So I assume I got tagged by at least one person. Tim Beck, former Ohio State quarterbacks coach, now the head coach at Coastal Carolina, posed on a beach with like the dance team, the Coastal Carolina dance team, and the Coastal Carolina chicken. They're the fighting chickens. Is that right?
They're the Chanticleers.
What is that? It's a fighting chicken. Can you eat it?
It's a fancy chicken. You can eat a Chanticleer. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go eat one now. Just
Kentucky Fried Chanticleer. Yeah.
So Tim Beck, just in his beach attire, posed with the chicken and the dance team, and it caused, I guess, a little bit of a stir. There was somebody on Twitter, and I did send it into our Slack message group, said Tim Beck would have an Audi, which is one of those things. I don't want to Audi shame anybody, but if you're putting your belly button on display, like you got to deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
So it was just an odd choice, and then it got deleted. The photo got deleted off of Twitter.
Oh, it did?
I think it did. But as someone
because maybe the head football coach like shouldn't be using students in bikinis to promote his program.
Well, like as someone else on Twitter noted, like the number of steps that it took for that photo to appear on Twitter, it's like we got to get 10 dance team members. We got to get them down to the beach. We got to get the chicken, get the fancy chicken outfit. We got to get Coach Beck. He was wearing like a big swaggy necklace that was part of it too. Then everyone's like, we got to get the lighting right. You can't be backlit. Everyone put their arms around each other. Now we got to get the photo. Which is the best one? We took 30. Okay, let's process like the steps that it took where nobody said, you know what? The dad bod dance team photo? Maybe not. How does that? Oh man. Somebody's in trouble, I think, for that. Yeah. But so that's not the only thing I watch. We've been watching a lot of The Amazing Race, like on old ones on Hulu. Are you an Amazing Race watcher?
I am not. I actually don't even know what the premise. I know like they go around the world and do stuff, but like what is it? I don't even know.
So it's like they have like 10 or 12 teams of 2, and then it's like you start off and you have to do like a cultural thing, like a little event. Maybe like, hey, you have to learn how to dance like the people in Colombia. And then after you do that, you get another clue, and then you've got to go over and like gather up food to make a special Colombian dish. And then when you do that, you go and you finish. And then the next day you fly to Serbia. So it's like it's all over the world. They're just like flying all over the place. But I like it. Do you like reality TV in general?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I hate reality TV.
I used to be a huge Survivor watcher.
I don't like, and this is like just an old elf complaining about life. Like the thing that has happened in the last 20 years where like idiots get famous being on reality TV because of how dumb they are. I hate. Like I like if you have a skill and you're on reality TV, great. If you're just a moron in a place with a camera, I want nothing to do with you. And that's all TV is anymore. You like morons in front of cameras? Wait.
No, like
should I? He said in an elf outfit.
Yeah.
Complaining about football with a broken eye. I hate idiots in front of cameras.
No, I don't have a tremendous tolerance for that. Like I don't watch like the Kardashians or stuff like that. Yeah. The one show of that ilk that I watched was Jersey Shore.
You did watch Jersey Shore though. See, Jersey Shore turns my stomach.
But like I think maybe the first 3 seasons, and I stopped and I don't watch it now. But like my brothers and I like quote like the first season of Jersey Shore to each other all the time. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So The Amazing Race is at least good because you get to see interesting places, and then the people do have to have to be smart and have deductive reasoning and stuff. But all we're talking about now is like we're just trying to figure out what pair of our family would make the better Amazing Race possible candidates to try to get on the race. So,
what you guys settle on? Or have you not?
Not me. Two of the other three, as long as it's not me.
Yeah, I think the answer is your daughters. Yeah.
Yeah. So as long as I'm not involved. So anyway, just like, it's not like they've done like 35 seasons, and I'm sure there's many people who've watched all 35. They're not all on Hulu, but like, I don't know, like 12 of the 35 are. And so we're just ripping through them right now.
Maybe I'll watch that. Yeah.
All right. What you eating?
I got a lot for this. I'll start with the most recent. So you guys are watching this on a Saturday. On Thursday, for lunch, my wife and I got takeout from a Peruvian sandwich shop in Grandview called Si Senor. Excellent. We what my friend Ari Wasserman likes to say, F around a little bit. So you like order like 3 different sandwiches and you kind of like split them up. We actually got 4 different sandwiches and split them up because I'm a big guy.
Baby's got to eat.
Yeah, baby's got to eat. He wasn't here, but he's got to eat. It was just really good. Like the best one was it was a chicharron sandwich. It was like crispy pork that had like a sweet potato aioli on it, and the bread was like the perfect combination of like crispy on the outside and fluffy on the inside. Just like really a little heavy on the mayonnaise, I think, for all the sandwiches, and a little heavy on the raw red onion, which I think can be a very overpowering flavor. But otherwise, really solid, in a place that I think I will go back to. I know there's one in Grandview, and I think it's also in North Market downtown. So that's one thing. And then the other thing was I was in Philadelphia last weekend, and we went to a place called Pizzeria Badia in an area of the town it's in Northern Liberties, and it's like supposed to be among the best pizzas in the city. Like the place was mobbed, but they had what they call their pizza party. So there was like, I don't know how many of there were. There was like 15 of us there. It was like me and my brother. Yeah, it was like my brothers and like their significant others, and like me and my wife and the baby and my dad and my stepmom, and like my brother's girlfriend's whole family was there, and my sister-in-law's whole family was there. There were a lot of us. But like they sit you down at this big table. They like they give you an avalanche of appetizers of like cheeses and meats and breads and salads that were all really good. And then they hit you with 8 pizzas.
No.
Yeah, they only have I think 5 on the menu. So like you get like 1 of each and then double up on whichever other ones you want. And it was so good. It was the best pizza I've ever had. It was incredible. Also wasn't really all that expensive. It was $45 a person. But like if you saw the spread, which it didn't include alcohol, but like if you saw the spread, like actually felt pretty good for a place that was like in a part of town where stuff tends to be a little more expensive sometimes. So it was just a really nice meal, but more importantly, it was some of the best pizza I've ever had. So that was
show.
Was great.
Could we do a live show?
Yeah. I think we could. Yeah.
That sounds spectacular. Look at that. Just family time and a pizza party.
Yeah. Great pie. Yeah.
So we went, I just love, chain steakhouses as again, just like there's been an increase in how much it costs to go out to eat in the last couple of years, which is fine, but it remains amazing to me of what you can get at a chain steakhouse, a steak and 2 sides or whatever. And it's like no more expensive than if you went to like a taco place. So we went, my wife and I went to Texas Roadhouse for lunch one day this week. And they kind of said like, oh, if you're in the VIP club, if you come in, you'll get a thing, whatever. It was kind of like, we got a little bit tricked, but it was okay. But the main thing was for every $50 gift card you bought, you got to spin a wheel for prizes. So there was a guy, so we bought like 2, which is just like, well, we're going to eat $100 worth of chain steak in the next calendar year. Right. So we want to spin this wheel. But there was a guy at the booth next to us who bought 10 $50 gift cards. So he got 10 spins on the wheel. And one of the spots, it's like a click, 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 like carnival wheel. But you got to spin it yourself. And so one of the spots was free steak for a year, which we assume is just like 52 free steaks, probably they give you, right?
Yeah.
But this guy, once you spin a wheel 10 times, it's not a casino. It's not perfectly balanced, right?
Yeah.
You get a handle, you get a hang of the
calibrate
wheel.
It. Yeah.
And I was like, this guy's going to win. And like on the 7th or 8th spin, he won steak for a year.
Nice.
So I assume, you also, and if you don't get steak for a year, you get your thing you're hitting is a free app, a free side of shrimp or whatever. So he's buying $50 gift cards for people. What a lovely gift.
Yeah.
Chain steakhouse, $50 gift card. But he's keeping all the bonus stuff, and he's given himself 10 spins at the wheel to get the free steak for a year.
That's great.
Absolute hero.
Yeah.
And that will be me a year from now. Everybody I know is getting a steak gift card, and I'm spinning that wheel as many times as I need to win steak for a year.
If someone hits the steak for a year, did they take it off the wheel, or could you have followed up and tried to win it yourself?
We did 2. I didn't get steak I tried.
But you didn't go back after you saw that guy win. You didn't go back and buy 13 more gift cards to try to get free steak.
I am not in a position to buy like $1,000 worth of steak right now. Like, give me a year. Let's see how Kings of the North does.
Okay.
That might be. Hey, whoa! This show really took off. What did Doug do? He's just eating chain
Texas
steak
Roadhouse
every day. But then it's so good. It's such a reasonable. It was like a $12 lunch deal for a 6-ounce steak and 2 sides. It's $12.
What's the cut? What do you get at Texas Roadhouse?
I always get a sirloin.
Okay.
I don't get that big. So it's like a 6-ounce sirloin, a baked potato, and a salad for $12.
Great deal.
You can't get a Big Mac meal for $12. So anyway,
what's the? I've never eaten at a Texas Roadhouse. I've only ever had it. The only time I've ever had it was when, like, randomly one day they had it for the media at the Woody, like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was the first and only time I got to eat the rolls from Texas Roadhouse.
Yes.
So what is the situation at the restaurant? Is that like an unlimited deal, or do you got to pay for
unlimited?
Oh wow, I need to go.
They bring them to your table right at the start, and it's like a cinnamon brown butter with the roll, and then you can ask for more baskets of rolls.
All right.
I mean, for real, $12.
That's great.
And then free steak for a year. So shout out to that guy. All right, what are you thinking about, Landis?
I'm just thinking about the holiday season, and I realized, I don't know. Maybe I had forgotten this because I do think it's something I've always appreciated. I love getting Christmas cards. I love I love getting a nice photo collage in the mail from people who I haven't seen in person in quite some time, and like catching up on what's going on with their family, and like seeing that their children look like they're 13 years old when last time I saw them they were 6 months. So it's interesting, and it's fun, and it's nice, and like my wife is very big on sending out Christmas cards to people. And I just like always sort of like dismiss it and get annoyed when I have to take them to the post office. But then we get them from other people. I was like, oh, I get it. It's very nice.
Oh.
It's a very nice gesture. So we have a lot of them. I feel like we got more this year than we typically get. Our door in the kitchen is like covered in them. So it's good. I like them. And I wish it wasn't just the once a year thing. I wish there was like another day in the middle of the year, like 6 months from now, where it's like, you know what? Everyone's just going to send cards to each other to let you know how things are going for them. I think that.
Nice. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Just like update day in June.
Yeah.
It's like, what's up day? I feel like we definitely should do Kings of the North Christmas cards a year from now. It would also be a good way to get like people's personal information. To be like, hey, if you want a Christmas card, trick you.
No, we have your home address. Yeah.
We do just want to let people know that this is Kings of Columbus. This is where Landis and I talk about Ohio State stuff. As most of you know, we have Kings of the North, which is our Northern College football show. And we have been putting Kings of the North in the same feed on the podcast feed on YouTube and on whatever podcast platform you listen. You could always find the Kings of the North episodes there. And we were doing one a week all season. And we would just like to tell you that we are taking that show out of that feed because we are making our own feed. And the goal of this, the whole reason that we started this, is for Kings of the North to talk about Northern College football in a comprehensive way as a separate entity. And we are going to get to a point where that show is going to be every day of the week, 5 days a week. And we can't have that in the same feed with all the Ohio State stuff we do. So the last show that we did before I had my eye surgery, we did a Northern Bowl preview. That show, Landis, only appeared on the Kings of the North YouTube feed.
Yep.
We just recorded another Kings of the North that went up on Friday. That also is only in the Kings of the North YouTube feed. So if you are hearing this on the podcast YouTube feed or on the podcast platform, and you're thinking, what happened to Kings of the North? That's where it is. It's on the Kings of the North YouTube feed, but also we are starting a separate Kings of the North podcast feed, Landis, correct?
We are, yes. The episode we did on Friday should be the first one that shows up there. Those things like typically take a couple days, like to get approved by various hosting platforms. Like Apple takes a little longer than Spotify. It takes a little longer than Google Podcasts. So we're like in the process of setting all that up. My hope is that on the other side of Christmas, it'll all be ready So again, people have been asking like, where is the podcast version? Like eventually it will be there. And like, yes, we are asking you to like seek out another thing to subscribe to. But as Doug said, like we also don't want to bombard our Ohio State feed with, stuff that's not necessarily it's not always going to be about Ohio State. And there's going to be a lot of it. So we want to, decrease the clutter if we can by asking you to go subscribe to another YouTube channel and subscribe to another podcast feed if you are interested in what we are doing at Kings of the North. And the YouTube channel exists right now. It's already there, Kings of the North on YouTube. You can find it, and shortly you'll be able to find Kings of the North on the podcast platform of your choice.
And really, we just it's somewhat hard to sort of explain what it is we're doing here.
Yeah.
But basically, it's a Northern College football TV show. So we really are thinking of it as a TV show that's on YouTube, just like Pat McAfee had a YouTube show that then ESPN bought. Like that's the goal for this. So, and we know it's long. And some people have said, man, it's like, we're going to be doing a long show every day on Kings of the North. And we certainly understand that not everybody is able to consume every minute of every show of Kings of the North. It's eventually going to be 10 hours a week, we think. That's a ton. We get that. But like there's all kinds of sports shows all over the place that are just 2 and 3 hours every day. Whether it's the radio show you listen to on your local radio station on Sports Talk, whether it's a show you watch on ESPN or Fox, and they're just there. They're always there. You catch them when you want to. You catch a piece here, a piece there. And that's what we're going to be. And so, we're so excited to do this, and we just are like want to make sure that like people kind of know, Landis, like what the point of this is. And it's not to be like a 40-minute podcast, because it's to be like a TV show that you sit down with or that's part of your life on a regular basis. And maybe that doesn't mean 10 hours a week for everybody, but there's going to be 10 hours a week eventually sitting there for you on YouTube. Whenever you want it,
whenever you want to access it. Yeah, that is the plan. Look, we got a lot to figure out with it. Like we understand where the bread is buttered and where a lot of our initial viewership is coming from for Kings of the North. So we really appreciate all of you guys who know us from covering Ohio State for helping us get that started. And we're still going to talk about Ohio State too, but yeah, this is like a separate thing that we're trying, and hopefully you enjoy that too.
I mean, we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it without the Ohio State people, who are the foundation of everything that you and I have done in our careers covering college football. So my thinking thing, and we'll just leave with this, is that the surgery I had was not certainly like a big gigantic thing, but it was a bigger deal than like anything that I've had done in my life before in my 50 years. And so I have realized, and it's around this holiday season, I do not have a regular way in which I think about gratitude, right? That some people have outlets for that. They have gratitude journals. My wife meditates every day with an app, and there are things with that. People certainly do that in their spiritual life. And like, it's just not a regular part of my existence where I think about the things that I'm grateful for. And I consciously sit and appreciate all the tremendous luck that I've had in my life. And what is wrong with me? Why didn't I do that?
I think it's a good message, because I don't really do that either. And I think it's important to do so. Like I try to, like, I don't do it as often as I should, but I try to, like, every now and then, like, stop myself, like, pay attention to what's going on in your life right now. Like, so no, I think it's good. So have you made like conscious efforts to be better about that in the last week, or no?
Well, I want to make a plan, like how to do it. And I think it might just be like me doing some sort of like meditative something every morning. But I'm very curious whether people, I mean, if you're a tech subscriber, you certainly have a way to tell us, to help me with my gratitude. Pay money to help Doug be grateful. God, what a pitch. Why do people watch this show? It's for real. It's a miracle. 614-662-4509. If you'd like to pay to help me live my life in a better way. Or if you want to tweet at us, just like anything people would suggest. I'm curious how people try to stay centered and are consciously grateful in their everyday lives, whether it's once a week, whether it's once a day, like what you try to do that. And I'm open to suggestions. So I feel like I probably need to be more proactive about that rather than just like flying through life with no idea of what I'm doing and just like one elf costume to the next, man. It's like just never stopping to appreciate what's really happening.
Yeah, I was going to say step one is just to wear the elf costume more frequently. Yeah.
I do. We debated again whether like Eye Patch Doug could be like my Kings of the North character. I think like elves live in the North. I mean, like I don't know. Would an elf costume in May be that weird?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I just was checking. We're having like a company meeting coming up in a couple weeks. So I'm like putting items on my agenda, and it's like, should I wear the elf costume every show? Might be a discussion point, and we'll just see what everybody at the company thinks.
Yeah, that'll be a short conversation.
I think so. Okay, so happy holidays to everybody. We're super excited to be back with you. We're so grateful for your continued support of Kings of Columbus, of Kings of the North, of everything that we have happening at the podcast. I'm so grateful that Bill and Berm and Scott and everybody at the company welcomed me with such open arms as I made the transition to come over here with you guys this year. And it's just like a super fun place to talk about college football when I'm not complaining about it. So we have plans to do some Kings of the North stuff leading up to the playoff games. So again, it's a great time to make sure you're subscribed to the Kings of the North YouTube feed. So we'll talk about Washington, Texas. We'll talk about Michigan, Alabama. And then Landis, as everybody knows, like you guys are heading to Texas, man. So we'll have full coverage on the podcast YouTube feed and podcast platforms talking about the Buckeyes against Missouri.
Yeah, we're all arriving at different points on Christmas Day. Interviews and stuff like that. Open practice window start on the 26th. So we'll have a bunch of coverage there. We'll do a Kings of Columbus, I would think, next week. We'll figure out exactly what the interview schedules are weird. They're like in the middle of the day, so we'll have to do some stuff at different times. And then we're also planning on still having the post game show from the Cotton Bowl as well. That also will look a little different because I'll be at the game and Doug will be here in Columbus. But we'll have that for you after Ohio State Missouri play it too. So no more coverage week.
Yeah. And again, like we had grand plans to cover the 2 playoff games, but with the surgery I had, I have a bubble in my eye. And it's still like shrinking, so I can't fly until my bubble shrinks. So I will say I was excited. We did get approved for the Rose Bowl because I had been like trying to like explain to the Rose Bowl PR person like what Kings of the North is, who we are. We were trying to get like everybody at Ohio State, like, can you explain to them that we're not just a guy in an elf costume, we're a legitimate show. And so we did get approved. And then as soon as we got approved, I'd like email them back and be like, thanks for the approval, but we're not coming. Sorry.
Yeah.
So they were very nice about it. So we'll be there next year for the playoff. We'll be all over the place. But for now, we could not be more grateful to everybody who makes our careers possible. And if you're watching or listening to that this show, that's you. So Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. We'll catch you next week when there's going to be all kinds of Ohio State stuff, all kinds of playoff stuff happening. And we know that you'll be here with us for now. For our producer, Mike Yurstowski, he is Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was Kings of Columbus. And Elves of Columbus, frankly. It was Elves of Columbus also.